Yo, and welcome to the 103rd episode of Lake of Rage Pokemon Trading Card Game Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kevin Clementi, aka Mellow_Magikarp. I'm joined today by three very special temporary guest hosts. All three of them will be attending Portland Regionals, and they're going to be helping us out with a Portland meta discussion. I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves a little bit, how long they've been playing, some of their accomplishments to show you that, you know, all three of these players are very good, and I've asked them here mostly to help myself pick a deck, but maybe it helps some of you pick a deck as well. So the first one, and joining us for the very first time, we have Cameron Shenoy. Cameron, how long have you been playing, and what are some of your accomplishments?
I've been playing since 2017. I started, my very first regional was the Drampa Garbodor in Vancouver. That format, my accomplishments are I top 32 twice, I've top 16 twice, and I've topped 8, but I'm definitely the least accomplished player here. So yeah, that's me.
I mean, I am here too, to be fair, and I've never made a top 8, got some top 16, so you got me beat at least. Kian, what about you? How long have you been playing, and what are some of your accomplishments?
Hey everyone, my name's Kian Amini. I've been playing since 06 when my older sister used to play. Then I played like 08 to 10, like kind of competitively. Then around 2013, I played very competitively till now. Other than the last couple of years, some of my accomplishments, my most proudest ones, I've won 4 regionals and top 4 OCIC and 16th at Worlds. Yeah, that's me.
And lastly, we have Stephane. Stephane, how long have you been playing? It's not the first time you've been here, so people have heard your voice before, but how long have you been playing, and what are some of those accomplishments?
Yes, hi, thank you. I've been playing since 2010, more or less, without interruption, although there were 1 or 2 years where I couldn't really play a lot. And I won NAIC twice in 2018 and 19, and I also have a couple of regionals wins.
So, as you all can hear, some pretty good players here to give us their opinions, and 3 people who very well could be holding up that trophy at the end of Portland Regionals as well. So, first question I want to get to is just the classic one, right? What are the top 3 decks you expect to play against? And I am going to challenge you. Don't just say Lost Box. Does that the Greninja version? Is that the Charizard version? Is it Forest Seal Stone, the Turbo multiple vacuums? Is it Sky Seal Stone? You know, same thing for Mew. Is that the DTE path, or is that Fusion Strike? Or so try and be specific on those types of archetypes. But we'll go Cameron and then Kian and then Stephane. So Cameron, what are those top 3 decks you expect to play against?
I think the top 3 will be Turbo Lost Box. It'll play something like pretty similar to the Australia list, maybe like 5-ish cards off. Some are playing like the Sky Seal Stone as well. So I think that's a good one of a tech. Whether or not you play 2/4 Seal Stone with that is up to you. And there's like a couple other techs. I think a couple cards off from Towards list as well. I've seen that a lot at League Cups. Maybe just playing an out or 2 for a Alolan Vulpix, maybe some other changes. And then the third deck, I'm not too sure. Like Lugia was probably the more popular deck, and it's kind of fallen off at Cups and after EUIC, but I still think it's a very strong deck. It does what it's supposed to do. So I think those will be the top 3.
Got it. So the Forest Seal Stone, Turbo Lost Box, Gardy based off Towards list, and then Lugia. Kian, what about you? Your top 3 decks you expect to play against?
Pretty similar to Cameron's points. Definitely that Lost Zone vacuum deck, the like 2 to 3 vacuum Dragonite Lightning, as well as Gardevoir. The third one, I think Lugia, or either Mew or Lugia. Mew's, I've seen a lot of top players playing Mew at like local events. It's like pretty consistent, and it's a pretty accessible deck as well. I mean, all decks are accessible, but Mew's always been a deck the whole past 2 years, right? So it'll probably be there. DTE Mew.
Gotcha.
Like Judge.
That's an interesting. The accessibility. Oh my gosh, I speak for a living. The accessibility factor is one that, like, Gardy's so cheap. So it's one that, like, oh, Gardy's going to be an expensive deck, and then suddenly like Cresselia costs more than the Gardevoir EX, which is just like ridiculous to me as far as being able to get the cards. Mm-hmm. And Stephane, top 3 decks that you expect to face at Portland.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. Mostly, I think Lost Box will be in there, but I do expect there to be a bit more stable Zard than. Well, I don't know if it's gonna be the most played Lost Box variant, but I think it will be pretty represented because it's the best at EUIC. If you look at it, it did surprisingly well. Pedro got top 4 with that. And I've seen a lot of people, maybe that's just a local effect, but I've seen a lot of people pick it up and try to do well with it at local events. So I feel like, I don't know if there's going to be more of it than the Turbo variant. I have no idea about that, but I do feel like it will be played more than it used to be. As for the other two, I would definitely put Lugia in the top 3. I think even though it might not be the most popular for local events, maybe because most locals are in best of 1 and people are afraid of breaking because the deck is consistent, but it's not all the most reliable. Maybe it's just because people want to think, oh, it's just a late challenge, I'm going to try something fun, I'm not just going to play the same old Lugia coin flip thing. But I do think that for a big event like Originals, I think that Lugia will be in the top 3 because it's still very strong. And I think God of War will be the other deck in the top 3. It was surprisingly popular at UIC, and obviously it performed better than expected with Tor's getting second. And now everyone is playing basically Tor's list with maybe a few cards different. 4th research cut for Serena mostly. People cutting maybe a level ball for the second God of War from Chilling Rain. And obviously you can try out some other stuff here and there, but like cut the penny, but something else, Clara instead of Miriam, whatever. You can try out some things, but I think most God of War lists will be like 4 or 5 cards of Tor's lists at most.
Awesome. So it sounds like in general, most people are agreeing on the meta being about the same decks, right? The best decks are going to be played the most. Massive shocker there, right? We did get a question from Twitter that kind of goes off of this. So this one's from Chris Butler. What does everyone think will be the best and the worst conversion rates for day 2? So those were the decks that we would expect to face, right? These would be the 3 most popular decks. But conversion rate, which ones will be the most successful from day 1 to day 2? And that might be for a million different reasons, right? Better players are playing these ones versus other ones, or like these are played in such large numbers that they're just not going to be successful, whatever you want to go with. But we'll go with Stephane first. What do you think will be the best conversion rate deck and then the worst conversion rate deck from day 1 to day 2?
Well, I guess technically worst conversion rate would have to be any random rogue that like 2 people bring to the originals and none of them make day 2, so that would be at 0%. But
fair.
For a bit less of a useless answer, I think God of War will have a bad conversion rate because I think that people expect it a lot, and I think that the deck is not easy to play perfectly. And yeah, I feel like now people know what to expect, and also they may be getting stuff like Penny, so if there's any Mywall tech that is around, then it will beat God of War. I don't know, I feel like some people will do well with the deck, but overall, lots of people who don't play the deck well enough will play it, and that will probably tank its conversion rate. As for the best, it's hard to say. I guess Gudra was a surprise pick for UIC, but I don't expect it to have the same impact again. I think it will do decently, but people will be more prepared. I'm gonna go. I don't know. I want to say that. Okay, this might be a bit bold, but I feel like Giratina will have a good conversion rate.
Arceus or Lost Zone?
Sorry?
Arceus or Lost Zone?
Oh, both actually. I think Giratina could have a pretty good conversion rate actually because it's pretty good in the metagame, especially against Gudra. And it can definitely handle things like God of War with Judge Path. Yeah, I feel like people don't respect the deck a lot, and it's not super popular, so it will be played by few people, but I think they can do well with it. I think Loz and Giratina can also do well, because I think it does decently in the metagame. You can play stuff like Cleansing Gloves if you want to one-shot a God of War EX, or Mu VMAX, even though you don't really need that against Mu VMAX, because you can just Drapion and Lost Lucreum. You can do you'll be good run stuff like this. The only thing is that Lawson Giratina is also a deck that is kind of the basic Lawson deck that many newer people will pick up, so that might tank a bit the conversion rate. So I don't know for sure, but I feel like the deck will do better than it did at UIC.
So that one definitely catches me off guard. So before we get the other two's top decks, I want to see Kian and Cameron. What are your thoughts on that statement of Giratina decks are going to be successful? Or is that something you're like, actually, I could see that? Or is that like, big number doesn't mean big success? Kian, what do you say?
From like, I haven't tested the Arctina deck too much, but I remember when I tried like Giratina, the straight one, I just felt like the deck was a little average. It's just not as fast, right? You don't play like, I don't know what people's lists are playing, but like I don't play Vacuum, or I feel like you're just doing things worse than other decks like Dragonite. Like Dragonite's faster and it could do like 250, but I could see Giratina being okay because it like blows up like all these anti-meta decks in a sense, but like I don't really know if I expect the anti-meta decks to do as well again. This is kind of my thought process.
Got it. So you're like, maybe not so much Tina. Cameron, what do you feel about that statement that Giratina decks are going to be successful?
So I'm kind of in the same camp where I don't like Giratina, but there's been like Kobe Kawasaki and his brother Cameron Kawasaki play it at locals a lot. They do well with it. They've beaten me a couple times with it. So like I think it's a strong deck. It has a better, like Kian said, I think it just has like better matchups across the board where like some of the other variants take certain losses, and having like the Giratina V-Star out is strong. But I do think Gudra is actually a little bit better, I think,
Gotcha.
than Giratina.
And I do want to throw out there too, because you said locals, and I want to mention that the name you mentioned is the runner-up from Vancouver Regional. So, despite being locals, that is a very good player, right? And his brother's also very good too.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm pro Tina, by the way. Arc Tina is on my list as much as I hate it. Both of you said that deck is incredibly average, and I think that is 100% correct. But sometimes average is just kind of good. So I'm pro the idea of Arctine having good conversion rate, because I'm going to imagine that I'm one of the people who is converting the deck.
I mean, Szymanski's deck was kind of average and it won.
That's also true. I mean, double Drapion's good. Vulpix was apparently good. Sometimes you just do the thing. Yeah. All right. So the next one, not the top three decks. The decks with the best conversion rate and the worst conversion rate. Cameron, let's go ahead and jump over to you for this one. What do you think are the decks that will have the best conversion rate and the worst conversion rate?
I agree that that Gardy is going to probably have the worst conversion rate. I think a lot of people are just picking up the deck. And if you look at Tord's run, like he had a great run, but he only played against one Loxbox player. He might have won, I'm not even sure, but
He went 101, yeah. Or 1-1?
I don't necessarily think that matchup is great, especially against like the Turbo variant, even the Sablezard variant. If they play Steel Stone, they can get 10 in the Lost Zone pretty quickly. But the Ninja variant kind of just blows it up, in my opinion. And so I think that will kind of keep it down, and that goes along with, I think, Turbo going up in play, that Gardy will kind of go down in conversion. And then the best conversion rate, I actually think is going to be Gudra. And I don't respect the deck at all. I hate the deck. Whenever I play it, it's trash. And then Polaris plays it yesterday, and Polaris does his run hot magic and absolutely slaughters everyone with it. And it's like, okay, this deck is good. I just don't know how to play it, but yeah.
I want to go off Gudra real quick, and because we have one of the biggest Gudra believers, maybe it was last format, but Stephane is here. One of my conclusions with Gudra has been, and I think it's kind of what Cameron was alluding to too, every time I play it, it feels like I'm not winning, my opponent's finding a way to lose the game. Is this an accurate way to describe Gudra of it punishes misplays hard, or are there lines that I'm just not seeing with the deck because I'm not quite there yet?
I don't know. I don't feel really that way. I feel like Gudra, especially last format, The deck was just under-respected by people because they felt, oh, it loses to Lugia, so it's bad.
Mhm.
And although the matchup was not the best, it was playable, and the deck had actually a very good matchup spread against the rest, against basically every Lost Box deck, against, well, except Giratina, but that wasn't played. It did very well against Regis. He did fine against Mew. He did, like, overall, it was a pretty solid deck in the meta game. Right, the no post rotation in the current format, it's a bit different because you have to be more careful about things, and it's still a lost zone deck, but it's a lost zone deck that has to be very careful with benching comfies, because against things like Lost Box, for example, you don't have Scuba Net anymore to take your one price Pokemon back, and so you're very weak to save a lie in the late game. So you have to be careful about not benching too much stuff. So that the opponent cannot play around your Kudras. They have to go through them, and then you can tank and heal.
Mhm.
So the deck is a bit different. Has to play Melanie or Rayhan or both, and focus on this. And I don't think it's like, I don't know if it outplays people, because it's not like the deck does have some lines, and you can add some text like Articuno or whatever, but it's not the deck that requires the most skill or anything, but I don't feel like the opponent loses because they misplay or something. It's just like the deck is pretty solid, and just having a big tanky thing is good when people don't play decks that one-shot it, like Giratina. Like, it's just, no, I mean, it's just the healing, the fact that decks in the metagame, many decks are not really equipped to one-shot Gudra. I guess God of War is the other exception, and that's also one reason why I'm not ranking Gudra as high as I think the others here are, is because I feel like God of War will be played a lot, and God of War has the tools to one-shot a Gudra V-Star.
Mhm.
The tools being Zacian, obviously.
Can't forget the
so
Sky
there
Seal
are,
Stone on that too.
yeah. So yeah, I feel that's one reason why Gudra, I think, will not do as well as it did at the UIC, because I expect more God of War, but I might be wrong, obviously.
I do want to throw it on the side of that one because people clicking on this are hopefully subscribed to the channel. And if not, be sure to check out youtube.com/Mel_Magikarp. The original Turbo Lasso deck that I played had no bosses orders. And the reason was, all right, you play no boss, so you never Lasso in the boss, so your opponent always assumes you have access to the boss. And then Gudra became good. And you said, you have to respect Gudra. And that's part of why there's Lugia matchup. You also needs a boss, but that's part of why there's now a boss in the Turbo Lasso list. And I highly recommend you strongly consider a boss or two in that Turbo Lasso deck if you're going to play it, if you're listening to this. Kian, do you have any thoughts on Gudra? I'm not sure, because you're the only one here I don't know what you've been playing. So any Gudra thoughts, or you're just like, yeah, it's definitely a big tanky thing?
It was like my third choice for EUIC, and I think, I think like some developments like that Lugia deck playing Duraludon now is kind of worrisome. Like, I know like the deck is supposed to beat it without Duraludon. That's how it was built. But like, if these like Lugia decks play Duraludon or Urshifu VMAX, that's kind of worrisome, right? Like they could blow up your Gudra. I mean, I know you could Articuno in that matchup, but which can help. I haven't tested that matchup extensively with like updated Lugia decks. And Gardevoir, I mean, like you guys said, if Gardevoir doesn't convert like Lost Zones or taking out Gardevoirs, yeah, maybe Gudra can do all day too. I think it's okay. Like I would be kind of worried about playing it because I don't want to play against Gardevoir. Like,
We haven't heard from you. What are the decks you expect with the best conversion rate in a day two and the worst conversion rate in a day two?
I kind of agree with Gardevoir. Like more Lost Zone. It is hard to play. Like I've tried to play it, and like you're playing like 7 actions in a turn. Like sometimes, like, oh, I shouldn't have like refinement. I should have maybe dug for VIP pass with Mew and like discarded it with refinement, or I don't know. Like I try to see things, or discard energy, hold energy, attach energy previous turns onto like Kirlia. It is like kind of a like challenging deck to play. Obviously, it's very sequence focused. I like thought for UIC like Lost Zone decks maybe have a worse conversion rate because they're very difficult to play for like an average player. I feel like only you have to be a very decent player to like. You guys know, like you Lost Zone like two cards. Like yesterday had a cup. I like had to choose between like my third gate in Sableye, and I was like, oh no, if I took the wrong one, I could have lost. So, best conversion rate, I would say this is a bit challenging. I don't want to say Lugia.
Just go with the same as EUIC.
I was tempted to say Lugia,
I
but
mean, it's good, but best conversion rate, I would have to research more. I mean, I would say Mew, but Mew's okay. It's not amazing, but it's been doing well. Like, it's consistent. I can see Mew doing well if like some certain top players play it. There's like a group of players or just certain players I know that play that deck and they could do well. It's like it's a bit like it's consistent, it does what it does and disrupts.
Yeah, it turns out hitting 190 every turn and disrupting your opponent's hand is, a very viable strategy, right? Yeah, Mew is one of those two that is deceptively hard to play.
Mhm.
Like, the amount of times, I assume it's happened to you all too, on like the PTCG live ladder or at locals, like they path themselves and end up bricking off of it. And it's like, that's a clear difference. If you sit down from, I assume, Tablemon Pablo, when he was playing it, that was probably not something that he ended up getting bodied by his own path very often. There's definite skill level to that deck that is a little subtle.
Yeah. There's just one thing I want to add also that I don't think we mentioned it, but about worst conversion rates, because we mentioned God of War and Lost Box. And these decks also have one thing in common is that the games are pretty long. And I think one thing that can also prevent them from getting a good conversion rate is you have to be able to play very fast with these decks, know when to scoop, when to play a very fast game too. Like I've had games like with Lost Box where I don't even use my config abilities because it's game free and I want it to finish. So I rush. I don't use my config ranger because I know I'm gonna win. I don't need them probably. So I just go fast because I need to. It's more important for me to pass the turn to the opponent than to draw one more card or whatever. And I think it's very easy if you're not very used to the deck, if you're not very used to playing fast in general. It's very easy with these decks to just get a tie because you win game 1 in 30 minutes, you lose game 2 in 20 minutes, and then you're shuffling up and time is called and there's no winner. And I think this can happen a lot more with these decks than with something like Mew or Lugia, which are more straightforward. I mean, Mew does have a lot of draw, but since it plays free prizers, you lose free prizes when there's a Drapion or something like this. So games tend to go faster.
I think that's definitely generally good advice for this format because Gardy is slower than Lost Box somehow, and Lost Box is
already slow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it can be. And yeah, that's what I was noticing at UIC, and that when I was playing there, I was like, this is going to be a game 1 format, and you really need to watch out for getting cheesed out of game 2. And at the mock regionals that I went to yesterday when we were playing best of 3, there was a lot of ties. And that's also just, I'm not saying anyone's bad, but just like kind of if you're not as great in skill level, I think that's where it kind of shows as well, not being able to just like tying a lot.
Especially those early rounds, that's something that I feel like has always been kind of a big deal because that's where people are playing slower because you just started playing for the day, so you might feel a little bit rusty or something like that, or you might just be hitting those people who aren't used to it and you suddenly run into like, oh, they're not picking up their pace at all.
And once you're in the tie bracket,
that is that's just game over at that point. You start 0-0-1, you just like, I have to 2-0 the next person or I'm out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
I guess 1-0 sometimes too.
That happened to me at UIC. I was 0-1-2 to 4-1-2. I hit ties I should have won, but that's what it is.
That's unfortunate part of life, right? And that's one of the reasons that so this will lead into a discussion, I promise. But I'm a big Lost Box believer, big Turbo Lost Box believer. But after Worlds, people who listen to podcasts, you've heard me complain about this before, but I'm going to complain about it again because I'm still salty about it. Played Radzard, right? Deck's super nuts, but your opponent steals one game off of you, and then they just choose not to really play game 3. And so they force the tie, right? Lost Box feels kind of the same way in that you're faster than Radzard was, but not fast enough that your opponent can always force a tie if it's a bad matchup. So what are you is that like a real consideration for you, or can it really be I'm just going to play faster? Right. So does that affect your like not game plan decision, but your deck decision to be like, if I have a bad game 2 or game 1, I'm just getting a tie and that's the best thing here. So I'm not going to play this deck, or is that just like, I'll just play faster. It's fine. Or I'm just not going to lose. That's also a valid strategy, I suppose. Quick aside, I DM Pedro about the top 4 list. I was like, how'd you finish game 3? And he's like, I don't know. I 2-0'd everyone. So it's a valid strategy, right? But Kian, what do you think? Is that affecting your game decision or your deck decision at all about this? Some decks are just so slow, or are you just like, man, I'll figure it out. I'll play faster or whatever.
No, that definitely does, because I played Lost Box at one regional and did it well, but I was kind of hesitant to play at other regionals. Obviously, I thought like Lugia and Regigigas were better, so I just played those instead.
Mm.
But I was scared of playing Lost Box at a different event this year, so I just liked playing like faster decks or just decks that finish game quicker. But I think in this format, like I know Turbo Lost Box, I think that deck's decently quick. I mean, it's very aggressive, so I think it's not like the same as other like Radiant are. That I played that deck in a regional. That deck takes a while to finish games because you're just like methodically just doing stuff.
It's a very long game of solitaire.
But still, at the end of the day, like if that shouldn't affect my judgment for picking a deck, right? If I think this is the best or this, like I'll still play it, right?
Yeah, Stephane, what about you? Is that affecting your deck choice at all, or are you just like, I'll figure it out?
Honestly, same thing. I might take it into consideration if I'm hesitating between 2 decks where I feel the same way or feel like they're at an equal level. But if there's a deck I feel, okay, I know how to play this, I feel like this is the best choice, the best metacle, and I have at least I know how to play it, but I'm happy with. Even if time is considerations are not favorable for that deck, I will still play it and just, I don't know, play faster if I need to.
And Cameron, you kind of already alluded to it, but what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it. I decide that it's a big factor in my decision making for decks. You can't always control how fast your opponent's going to play, even if you play faster. I do think I would be willing to play a slower deck, but I would have to feel I have a lot more reps with it to be comfortable to be able to make the best decisions. And I don't want to say manipulate time, but that's because you cannot do that. But just use the time to the best of your abilities with that deck, right?
Yeah.
If it takes a while.
There's those situations where you know all the decisions, the knowledge comes into play there a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't really gone into Gardy a whole lot, and I will tell listeners, if it's the first time you're here, go check out last week's episode with Tord, where he dove into every single card in detail, all that good stuff. But if you were to play Gardy, as I think this is just one of those questions for everyone, would you tech for a Alolan Vulpix? And how would you tech for a Alolan Vulpix? So we'll go with Cameron first, because you kind of already gave us your answer earlier, but would you tech for a Alolan Vulpix and how?
Yeah, it would be my Gardy variant that I played at USC is pretty different from Tord's. There's a lot of similarities, but I played triple Clef Key and had Arene for the Lost Box matchup, and I was playing Penny. I never really used Penny. I think I only used it against Pedro once in day 2, or I used it a lot against him because he was playing the Mawile. But I think you just cut that for a Rope. And I think Rope is really good to also just, for my variant, get Klefki into the active if you needed to. I also play 2 Boss, and with Rope and double Boss, I think it's pretty good in the mirror where you can start targeting down their Curlias, especially if you have a Klefki in the active. They're not as willing to put down the Ninja and the Mew early, so it's more likely that their bench is just all Ralts. And so you just have more ways to target that in the mirror. Which is how I've been winning, is using double Boss and Rope just to kind of stifle their draw engine. So I just think Rope is a really good card for that, for Gardy to have.
Got it. So Rope actually having some extra utility in there that interests me quite a bit. Any edge in the mirror seems incredibly important, because otherwise the mirror is, I got my EX out first, it feels like. Kian, what about you? If you're playing Gardy, are you teching for Alolan Vulpix? And if so, how?
I kind of agree with Cameron. Like my list had like Boss and Serena. I kind of researched. Then, like I don't have Rope, but I was either like a Rope pass slot. I think another judge could be helpful, like versus Mirror or Lost Box, because you just in Lost Box, if you set up like you want to crest, they have Cram active, you crest their Sable or Comfy, then judge him, you could really slow him down. Same as Mirror, like crest is just like insane in Gardy Mirror and Lost Box. Like I haven't tested it, but like maybe you could play 2 of those, but I have not tried that. But crest is just really strong versus those 2 decks, Mirror. And another suggestion was I was not like I was thinking about like can you play like 3 rare candy, but I was thinking about like I don't think 3 is good. I would maybe play like a Forest Seal Stone or Arvin, so you could like hedge or like just like that's the game, right? You get turn 2 candy and you're fast, right? So something that speeds you up.
The Force Seal Stone's an interesting one for sure. We saw James Cox testing it on stream, not that long ago. But it's like you don't use the Sky Seal Stone in every matchup, and Forest Seal Stone is, good. It's like a very good card, turns out, right? So that's definitely one that's like maybe this should be in list, right? Stephane, if you're playing Gardy, are you teching for Lowland Vulpix, and if so, how?
It's tough to say, because I don't know. Probably because I don't really like losing to stuff, like having auto losses to stuff. But at the same time, I feel like Vulpix is beatable. Like Todd wasn't very far from winning. Arguably, if his boss wasn't prized in game 2, he would have won a UIC.
True.
So I don't know. Obviously, we could see Vulpix in more stuff now, like Gudra as mentioned. That could be a place where this could be played. But I don't know. I don't feel like I would consider it. I do like the escape rope for the reasons that Cameron mentioned. But I don't know if I expect that much Vulpix, and I feel like if it's something like the list that Alex Shemansky played, I feel like you can beat it without without it. I think like having, for example, Serena alongside the boss also gives you more outs to knocking out the Vulpix before it evolves, if you have stuff like this. So I feel like you can afford to not really have a hard deck against it and just be like, okay, I think like I can do decently against that by outplaying the opponent and just playing well. One thing I say is that yeah, if you take something, if it should be something like the escape rope, don't play something like Mimikyu EX that some people have been mentioning. I feel like this card is just not worth it. Basically, Cessation that has pure HP and cannot use K-Seal Zone. So yeah, don't play this sort of random tech that is just for Vulpix. Play something that can also have uses in other matchups, like mentioned, like the rogue that can be useful in the mirror match or stuff like this. Or there's even like a Gallade, the fighting type Gallade from I think it's Sterling Rain, where it doesn't one-shot Vulpix, but it has 170 HP, so you also survive it, assuming that you didn't take damage, but you only need 2 energy to charge it up, so that's doable, especially against an Arceus deck. And it also has uses against stuff like Miraidon and you, so I don't think it's worth, like I thought about it, I don't think it makes the cut, but it's a sort of card where you feel, okay, that actually has more uses because you can use it in other matchups as well, and it's not like a bad starter like Mimikyu. You
can always Miriam it back on like an escape rope too, which is a plus.
Yeah, true. I prefer the escape rope overall, but I just think that Mimikyu is not worth playing. I just wanted to say that.
That's I went out and bought one and then very quickly shoved it back into the binder after actually playing the games with it. But it's cute. Mimikyu's a cool Pokemon.
It is.
All right, I want to do some like rapid fire Lost Box stuff. I did this before the EUIC one, but I want to talk about, would you include these cards in, we're going to say Greninja Lost Box as opposed to the Zard one, because I think we all kind of agreed earlier that Greninja is probably going to be more played, although Zard is still going to show up, right? Like, it's not a surprise that multiple top...
I do expect more Greninja than Zard.
Yeah.
In Lost Box, I just think there will be more Zard than before that.
So, in Greninja decks, would you run the following cards? And no real explanation, is kind of a yes, I would run it, no, I would run it. So rapid fire, and we'll go Cameron, then Kian, then Stephane. So, would you run Roxanne, Cameron,
Yes.
Kian,
Yes.
No.
Which
Sorry.
which deck? Like
in
Greninja or
any Greninja Lost Zone variant, any single prize or V focus, not Giratina, not Gudra,
yes, and Radiants are no and Greninja.
and Stephane.
Yeah, sorry. No, I spoke out of turn, but no,
You're
I
good.
probably wouldn't.
Awesome. And then the next one would be Halucha, Cameron.
Yes, but it may be the 61st card.
Kian,
Yes.
and Stephane.
No, I don't like it. Maybe in Sable's Art, not in Greninja.
Cool. Pokegears, Cameron,
Yes.
Kian,
No.
and Stephane.
Yes.
Sweet. Next one would be a second Manaphy, Cameron,
No.
Kian,
Yes.
Stephane.
Oh.
Cool. So I'm trying to think if there's any other text that I'm missing in there or any of like super obvious ones. I don't think so because then it becomes super deck specific. So those always feel like some of the ones for myself at least that are, the 61st card, right? So figured it was worth kind of getting into. We did talk about Gudra already. We talked about Arceus a little bit, but we just kind of talked about like Shemansky's deck exists and Arceus Giratina exists. But do we expect Arc Piles? I'm just going to throw out the stuff that I've been messing around with on it. Has been the Flying Pika, Umbreon, Aerodactyl, and Vulpix, of course, as like some of the different partners with it. Do we expect an Arc Pile to be viable right now? Or is it like, now that the utility of Duraludon and Vulpix is gone, the meta is a little too open. So, Stephane, do you expect Arc Pile decks, take that as you wish, right, to be viable? Now, I mean, viable is maybe the wrong word. Do you expect them to do incredibly well? Hey, these things are going to be everywhere? Or it's like someone's going to do well with something, but it's not going to be that good. So what are you expecting for these Arceus decks?
I feel like you always have to expect some of it, because every time we feel, okay, Arceus is not good now, it's underwhelming or whatever, there's always a deck that performs well and better than expected. I don't think Arceus will be everywhere. I think there are too many other good decks that can beat it and stuff. But I do feel like, yeah, you have stuff to do with it. Someone's going to do well with it. It might make top 8. I don't know. I feel like, you mentioned some stuff like Flying Pikachu. I feel like also Tapu Koko VMAX is something that has been very underplayed. And I'm not saying I like it or anything, but it's like it regularly comes back in Japanese tournaments. You regularly see people doing well with it. So I don't know, like maybe there's something we're missing, and maybe someone will pick it up and some kind of Arceus, Tapu Koko, Flying Pikachu deck. You can probably do decently with something like this, or maybe something will be completely different. I don't know, Aerodactyl or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel like there will be some Arceus decks in day 2 that will not be Alex's Arctura or even Artina. There will be some other stuff as well.
Kian, what do you think? Kind of an agreement, or Arc Piles just like, they're not really it?
So, like, I didn't test this deck, but I wanted to try, like, Braden Elford's 12th place deck. I could see Flying Pikachu doing well. There's Lost Box on the rise. Like, if there's, like, way more Lost Box and you could find a way to, like, even out the other matchups, I could see it. That, like, a variant like that doing well, like Stephane said, maybe Lightning.
Mhm.
Like, Pikachu might be okay.
I will add, if you do want to try out Braden's list, because this is amongst the piles that I have tried, ponchoing your Pikachu is incredibly important in the Lost Box matchup, or else the Pika's really bad if you don't poncho.
And Espeon, I mean.
Yes.
The issue is, though, is vacuums as well.
Also
So
true.
I would have
And Cameron, thoughts on Arc Piles?
Part of me thinks they're good, but I do think the Sky Sealstone and Turbo makes that matchup better. Actually quite a bit with triple vacuum, because you can get rid of those ponchos, and then you can take 4 prizes on certain things, or 3 prizes on the Arceus. So that kind of, and I do expect like there to be a lot of turbo. So I do wonder if that keeps it down a bit, even though I do think like that Espeon, like the Pikachu Poncho can be annoying for a lot of decks.
And 2 bosses orders is
Yeah.
problematic too.
Yeah.
Also true. Even against, judge spam, that gets scary. All right.
The judge spam doesn't always work.
No, but when it does work.
Yeah.
I guess it's a good time to jump into Mew VMAX. So I want to start with Cameron. Talk me, why should I play Mew VMAX in Portland?
I think you said it earlier. It's a pretty simple deck, and what it's trying to do, it's trying to judge you. It's trying to hit you for 190 to can hit up to 280, 310 sometimes. And it judges you, and that is very powerful in a format where Lost Box, Gardevoir, some other decks are really trying to build up these big combo turns. I was playing against Lee Bowie yesterday. I've been playing Mew. I was playing against Lee Bowie yesterday, and I was talking to Cal, and he's like, "Yeah, Drapion with Sky Sealstone just bodies that matchup." And then Lee was kind of in agreement, and then I 2-0'd Lee, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's pretty hard when you're getting judged like 4 turns in a row under path to find everything you need." And I said, "Yeah, I mean, it's just it does what it's supposed to do most of the time. Sometimes it comes down to a cram's heads or tails, but it's just one of those like simple, straightforward decks that's usually pretty strong at the beginning of the format when everyone else is trying to figure out what they're doing and what the right list is."
And then on the opposite side, Kian, you were pro Mew earlier, so I'm going to force you. Why shouldn't I play Mew VMAX in Portland?
Okay, so the issues with Mew, it's not a very powerful deck anymore. It's like the power level is very average, and like against good players who know how to like when to use their Drapion or like thin their deck or like map out their prizes, you'll lose if they know what they're doing. Because some players like do know how to play against Mew. Like Mew like destroys people who like use their attacker in the wrong time, don't thin their deck, or attack in the wrong order. Like if they use your Drapion like early, like that's not smart. You're supposed to like there's like you guys know like when to use Drapion is a pretty significant part of beating Mew. But the thing is like power level, like even like Lugia, it's like I know you're supposed to beat them early, but like when they have V-Guard T-Tower, like you cannot like do enough damage, which is just kind of sucks. So the power level's kind of it's pretty average now with everything getting bigger. But yeah, I don't think the ceiling is high. The ceiling is high for the deck.
I do want to add off the Lugia matchup. Again, I've DM'd quite a few people, both Lugia players and Mew players, and the opinions on the Lugia versus Mew matchup entirely comes down to if the Lugia player drew out of Judge Path and got the Summoning Star. Yeah, because the ones who draw out of it or their opponents drew out of it, they're like, oh, the matchup's unwinnable for Mew. And the ones who don't are like, bro, Mew just bodies Lugia. It's just so funny how it's literally just that one turn that decides.
I do think it got significantly worse though, the matchup from now to before, because they weren't really running a lot of path outs, and now they're playing like 4 stadiums and a Pumpkaboo. I've seen some people playing 5 stadiums, and Messagoza, like if you flip heads, gets you out of it as well as being a path bump. So I do think their chances are higher of getting out of it now.
Like Fan of Waves kind of helps, but like a T-Tower with a V-Guard is just so annoying to kill, especially if it has Gift and V-Guard. Like, it's so much resources to like deal with. You just lose when that happens.
Stephane, I'm gonna let you
deck.
go for it.
That's why Paulo's deck was just. That's why decks right now are just 4 Judge, 4 Path. I just gotta win early.
I mean, so that's what was it? Supreme Court, the Pikarom judge that took Worlds by storm that one year. It was kind of the same thing, right? Of like, it had almost 100% conversion rate from day 1 to day 2, and there was one in top cut, and they were all over the top 16 and 32 for that exact. I'm gonna just keep judging you over and over again. And eventually, it sticks, right? Stephane, I'm gonna let you pick. Convince me why I should play Mew or why I shouldn't play Mew.
I guess it depends on if you like to play Mew. I think it's strong, like a Judge Path strategy, and then Roxanne Path. It's just strong, and you win games that you shouldn't win just because sometimes you eventually Judge Path and the Lost Box player stops getting like all rest of Judge, or something like this. So yeah, it's like it definitely wins games, but it does the same thing as God of War. Like, yeah, in theory, God of War can trace very well, but turns out that if you cannot use God of War's ability, then the deck is pretty bad. So, like Muse was one of these decks where, yeah, as Kian said, its power level is not as high as it used to be, but its disruption power is just like great, and like you really cannot count it out. Like you really have to expect to play against it, and you have to have a plan against it. And sometimes the plan doesn't work out because again you get judged left. So I feel like it's a good deck if it's never a bad choice, but it's a choice where you have you're admitting that you're taking a risk with like people drawing wherever people draw out of the judge paths or not.
Mhm.
And again, like it's not like there's obviously every deck you're taking a risk, whether or another, whether it's in the matchups or the coin flips or whatever. So I don't know. Again, it comes down to whether you like to play that sort of deck and play the judge path game, basically. It's a good deck.
So now that you've talked, I realize what I should have asked you originally. That was a great answer, though. But Mew versus Arceus Giratina, which you think is the better Judge Path deck?
I think Muse is better. Mew just has like it's easier to find continually judge and have the peaks with Mew. So I think it's a better deck overall.
Okay, that makes sense. The next one I want to get to, and y'all understood the assignment in the original. Y'all mentioned like Lugia is not showing up in cups and kind of explained why. But I kind of want to do the same thing as we did with Mew. So we'll go in the opposite order this time. Stephane, why should I play Lugia to Portland Regionals? And for those of you listening, you cannot see the look on his face. That was not what Stephane wanted to argue.
I will answer the question as you asked it. So you should play Lugia because it's objectively a good deck. Like it has good matchups. It somehow always plays the attackers in the types that matter for the format, right? So like you have dark attackers for Mew and for God of War, and you have Stonejourner for Arceus and Miraidon, and so you have good attackers against most of the meta game, and you're basically you're basically playing a one price deck against against Lost Box, for example. You just have a bunch of one pricers that have 130 HP or more, and plus the Healing Fruits Arena, so you have a very good well, actually it depends on the Lost Box variant, I guess, but overall I think most Lost Box decks have a hard time with Lugia just because it's hard to knock out Lugia's Pokemon. Like you can use Raikou V and you knock out a Lugia V-Star, great. And then Lugia answers with Stonejourner, and then you don't deal with Stonejourner very easily unless you're using another two-pricer, and then again it can get knocked out. Dragonite is supposed to deal with Tyranitar, but Tyranitar with big card energy actually survives Dragonite, so that's a big deal again. So yeah, basically, reasons for play Lugia are you have a plan against every deck in the format, and the Lost Box matchup in particular is good. And since we know that Lost Box will be, well, we know, we expect, I think we all expect Lost Box to be one of the most played decks. That's a good reason to play Lugia.
And Kian, why shouldn't I play Lugia in Portland?
So like we said earlier, like the deck is like decently consistent, right? But the biggest issue of the deck is it doesn't really go through the deck, right? Like sometimes you get past and you turn 2 brunette, then your deck is like 50 cards or like 40 something cards. And sometimes you don't get what you want. That's my biggest issue with the deck. It's good, but like it does not draw its deck, and you're just like but like the negatives about it.
I mean, that feels like a very good negative of just like you just kind of, well, I drew these cards, and so I'm going to play these exact cards, and that's it.
Yeah, like Stephane said, it's like its matchups are very solid. It's a good deck. The negatives, the mirrors sucks. Which that sucks. I don't like playing mirror. I think that's my two biggest takeaways. The mirrors, whatever. There's no outplay potential. Like, sure, you could play more boss, kill Arceus, or just flood one prizers, but it's kind of miserable. I mean, you could play Dura, but if I don't like, you can see people playing Urshifu VMAX, which is okay. It's not amazing. That helps Mirror, I guess. I don't know how much it helps Mirror. It just enters Dura. That's my biggest issue with the deck is it draws kind of weird because if you can't play research every turn, your deck is just kind of weird. Your deck is just it's not as like flowy as last one where you had quick balls, ultra balls, incense. You just like burning through your deck. Then the mirror is just whatever. Lockdown is a good match.
And then Cameron, I want you to discuss a little bit the techs in Lugia, if you think they're good or not. So that would be the Duraludon, the Urshifu, Radiant Serena. Is that keeping in the deck or not? Like, are these things that you should be considering? Like, what are some good techs, bad techs for Lugia?
I do think you do probably keep the Radiant Serena. It's pretty crucial against Lost Box to keep them from ninjing you if you're not going to play the mana fee. I think the Urshi I like a bit better than the Duraludon, partially because the secret of Duraludon is no longer as good, and then it's also Urshi's good against Gudra. I think it's probably pretty good against Mirror because they can't one-shot you. And then I think if you do that with Urshi, I think the Gardevoir matchup is not great, but if you play like 2 Veltal and 3 Boss, you can probably beat Gardy. The yeah, that's what I think about the techs. I don't think there's any other techs.
Just go kind of a straightforward, like, well, you got the same 50 whatever cards, right? That we saw in top 8.
That's the downside of the deck. Like they said, like it doesn't feel very skill dependent. Like there's not a lot of skill expression in the deck. You kind of just do what's in your hand, and most of the time it's pretty straightforward.
I can also tell the energy level in answering the questions about Lugia. All three of you are just like, it's definitely a deck in the format. Okay. The last one that I have to mention, or else I'm going to get angry Twitter, or I'm going to get angry comments after you answer it, unfortunately. But if I don't ask it, I'm going to get angry comments. So, Miraidon, top 8 at EUIC. The deck is absolutely broken, right? Kian, I don't think we've started with you in a while. Miraidon, good, bad, the play was top 8 lucky. What do you think about Miraidon?
Average.
Is average like unplayable, or is average just like, you can do okay, maybe?
You can do okay, but I don't think it's like a tier 1 deck at all.
Cameron, Miraidon, thoughts?
It's a deck that does really well at the first tournament of the year because it's fast and can catch people off guard. But I think it's not as strong as the other decks.
And Stephane, Miraidon, thought more positivity for Miraidon or no?
Yeah, see, that's a strange thing. Like, I did expect Meridian to do better in the first tournament, like to do well, because yeah, it goes fast and so on. But at the same time, like it did win a Champions League in Japan towards the end of their SV1A format, which is basically what we have plus like few other cards in like, but is basically very similar format to ours. And Miriam actually won a Champions League like with 2,500 people or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really understand. Well, actually, I do understand why. The reason why is because Lost Box was falling over there because people were taking against it a lot. Lots of Lugia and stuff like this. And Miriam just went fast and knocked out the Lugias. But I don't know, like it feels like the deck can work, but it's also a bit random. Like it's a bit high roll. If you draw well, the deck is very good. If you hit your energy generators, then you do very well. But if you don't, it's also a deck where yeah, sometimes you just whiff and then there's nothing you can do, or you just get a bad hand and then you can really do nothing. So it's a high roll deck. Like you can do well with you can do well with a bit of luck, and I do think that the chromomatic inclusion that Robert Greenbrum had in his top 8 UIC list was smart, because it can help the deck lose the useless pieces like Nesball over the course of the game and grab Electric Generator, which is often the only card you need. So I do think that was a reason for why he made the top 8, is that he had a good idea in building his deck. But I also do think that the deck is high rolly, and it's not something I would necessarily recommend to people. But it's better than we give it credit for, which is not. I mean, but we don't give it a lot of credit anyway. So I don't know. I guess average might be the good. Kian had it right. Average was the right description.
I did like that guy's list to top 8 though, because the biggest issue is like the deck is like only plays like 3-4 turns, and you need like some speed, like cram. That's the whole point of the deck, is just hitting generator. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything you could exploit, like playing Penny in it, or I'm just looking at his list. Like the whole point of the deck is to like hit turn 1 knockout, and you do that, you just aggro people. So, but the issue is, I do think the Mew matchups is kind of hard. Sure, you could outspeed it, but you have to answer path, hand disruption. I could be wrong, but yeah.
No, that sounds
I
right.
think the Mew matchup is bad. I think Mew matchup is not good for Miraidon.
Yeah, because taking the first 2 prizes doesn't actually do anything unless you play like Sealstone on Raikou, which doesn't even knock out you, and you have to play Forest.
I have seen Miraidon list with Sky Sealstone, but they're the exception.
Yeah.
Not the rule.
That also feels like something that's not going to work multiple times. Like, like you know it's coming, so you're able to psychically sum your stuff up, and you can just kind of like continually psychically for a while till they get. I don't know. That doesn't sound like Sky Soulstone's going to make a massive difference. I could be wrong. Maybe Sky Soulstone's broken, and someone's going to prove me wrong. But as long as Psychic Leap exists, that doesn't sound the best strategy in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Questions from Twitter. We got the stuff about Giratina. Thank you to Chimpokemon and Chris for asking questions about that. But we did get one from Toddy the Mawile. Does this format have any prefer go second matchups? And I feel very safe saying the most likely one would be a Lost Box variant. So the first thing I want to ask is, going blind game 1. You can pretend any Lost Box variant you want to. Would you go first or second blind into a matchup? And we'll just go Cameron and then Kian and then Stephane. So Cameron, if you're going blind in Lost Box, do any variants want to go second, or are you going first with all of them, or vice versa?
I think I go second with Sablezard, and I really like Sablezard. It was my second choice for EUIC behind Gardy. I just think that deck is more consistent. Turn 1, you play multiple gears. You have the Fog
Orb,
Crystal, the
Fog
Fog
Crystal,
Crystal, yeah. So you just have more outs in the early game. You can play switchers as well, so you just have like more switching outs as well. So I just feel a little more comfortable with getting the turn 1 consistently with that variant, going blind into any deck.
Kian, what do you say? Are there any Lost Zone variants that you'd want to go second with, or all of them?
I think I agree with Cameron with that build. If you play gears, depends on your list too.
Mm-hmm.
If you play gears, you're more inclined to go second. But my thought, like, I'd be kind of scared to blindly go second versus like Lugia or Gardevoir. But like, in general, I go with Greninja builds. I try to go first versus Lugia and Gardevoir. One of my friends thinks going second's better versus Lugia, so you try to turn 1 Raikou them and hope they don't get 2, which is, I think, is kind of greedy. But I always just go first with Turbo, since I know you play Forest, but you have to hit your Cold, or like, I think I rather just Lost Zone. I would try to get like 2 like Lost Zones Confies turn 1, then go from there. Like, but I think I agree with Cameron. That build is like designed to go turn 1 cram. And it's still good. It's still fun going first too. But yeah.
I do love the Lugia tech is just draw hot and get lucky. that sounds like a viable tech right there. Just Raikou turn 1 and pray.
I mean, it's good too, because you make them put 2 Lugias on. There's more prizes.
Yeah.
That's why they play Sealstone, Boss.
Yeah.
And Stephane, you're going blind. Are there any Lost Zone variants you'd want to go second with, or all of them, or etc.?
Maybe Civil Zard. I'm not sure, but because I don't have that much experience with Civil Zard, but that list might want to go second, going blind for the reasons that Cameron and Kian said. I think that with any other list, you want to go first, and I think that has to do with the way the decks are built, like the thresholds you want to reach. Because if you're playing a Greninja list, you have Mirage Gates, and so you want to reach 7 cards. That's the important part. And you can do that going first on turn 2, right? You call rest, you Comfy 3 times and then a Vacuum, or 4 times and Vacuum something, or maybe 1 more Comfy, like depending on what you play. The Turbo list can do that more easily. But yeah, that's basically how that works. With Sableye, you don't really care about Mirage Gate. You might play some, but you don't need them on turn 2 or anything. And you're mostly wanting to go to 10, good 10 as fast as possible for Sableye. And because of this, like if you go second, I mean, not only do you get the turn 1 permanent, but you can also, again, depending on your list, but I'm assuming that you play some kind of turbo list with last vacuums, you can also reach 10 cards in Lost Zone by turn 2 and start using Sableye by turn 2. And I think that's the difference between the Sable Zard deck and the other Lost Zone variants, and why I think that over Lost Zone decks, like even in the Turbo list Mirror Match, you probably want to go first. I guess that's also that might be your next question or something. So
Go for it. Lead us off on the next question. Lost Zone Mirror. Do you want to go first or second?
Well, again, I think I prefer Greninja variants. I feel like Greninja brings a lot to Lost Box, not only as a draw engine, but also as a big threat, right? Something that people have to bench Manaphy to get their Manaphy ASAP, or you cannot, or you're gonna get Moonlight Shurikens. And and I think that you want to go first because you have these threats. And you're forcing, and even if the opponent can go Manaphy Cramorant on 1, they also need Manaphy, or you're gonna answer very quickly. And I think that getting the first Mirage Gate is usually more important than getting the first Cramorant. You're not even sure that Cramorant is actually gonna work, because you could be, I don't know, hitting some, like the main from Cramorant is not as important as the threat from Greninja, I think.
Yeah, you cram right into my Pidgeot, and then you just lose the game. That's
basically, for example.
Kian, are there any Lost Box mirrors where you want to go second, or are you always choosing to go first?
I think going first is safer, like you guys said. But like ratings are second, but I can see the debate going second because you want the first cram, but like getting more Lost Zones is really important. If you play 2 cram, I could see the argument for going second because you cram knockout, or the damage they cram, then you cram back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like going like second with 1 cram, then you need to have 10 Lost Zone or attack with V. So I would go first.
And Cameron, same question.
I think going first is safer for sure, but if you think you're gonna run hot, I think going second is better. But it does put that pressure on you to hit everything on like multiple turns. So I don't know. I prefer going first and maybe like making them hit into your Ninja, or hit into, like if you play a Snorlax, like do something like that and to tank a hit if you're going first, and then to pop off on turn 2.
Yeah, the cram into the Snorlax. As much as I love the Pidgeot, that's a very cuttable card, but the Snorlax is or
the Pidgeot. Yeah.
The Snorlax is absolutely nuts, and another one of those like 61st cards in every Lost Zone deck that I build.
Yeah,
it's just like, Snorlax would be good here. Last question. This one comes from Andre. Andre, I don't know how to say your last name. I'm so sorry. Chasen? What got top 4 worlds, top 8 worlds.
If you pronounce it French way, it's Chiasson, but I don't know how it's pronounced in Canada, in Quebec.
All right. So what they asked is, this is the true important question. What color of nail polish is optimal for Gardevoir players? So you going purple to match the cards? Are you going pink because it's a fairy type? Are you going other because you got the sleeves? Stephane, you're the only one who I know will wear nail polish so that looks good on stream. So we'll start with you. What is the optimal?
So it's actually a trick question, because you don't choose the color depending on your deck, because the color if you don't want to give any information to the opponent, right? You don't want them to be, oh, you're playing with purple sleeves or playing Mew or Gardevoir. You don't want to be like, oh, you're playing yellow sleeves, you're playing Miraidon. So the choice should be completely independent. And since the choice of nail color should be the same as the choice of sleeves, then you just pick a color that you want to wear that day, whichever you have, or whichever you look good, or whichever you haven't used in a while, and you just do this. Like, there's no color that is better for Gardevoir or for Lost Box, because it has to be completely random. You don't want again, I'm not saying never play purple with purple nails if you're playing a psychic deck, because again, that would also give you information. You would just want to pick completely independently of your deck.
Is that how known is this meta? Because this is all new to me.
I have a lot of thoughts about things like this.
Cameron, you seem to be enjoying this. What are your thoughts?
I think it's pink. I think you can't go purple. That's disrespect to fairy. You gotta respect the fairy type.
And Kian, what about you?
Lavender.
Lavender. Why lavender?
I think that color is cool.
That's valid. Can't disagree with that one. All right. I'll give a chance to give any shout outs. Be sure to follow all these great people on Twitter, but we'll go Cameron first. Any shout outs, and where can the people find you if they want more stuff from you?
Tabletop Village, Someone's PC, all the people in Seattle and kind of the Bay Area. Those are the main people I play with. And then I guess you can really just find me on Twitter, Twitter/Cameron Shenoy. And yeah.
Kian, what about you? Shout outs, and where can the people find you if they want more?
Shout out to my Bay Area homies. Shout out to Cameron. Still talk to him even though he moved away from me. Shout out to Someone's PC. Shout out to my sponsor store, Card Art at Sunnyvale. And shout out to all my friends who helped me play this game still. And my Twitter is Kian Nakano.
And Stephane, what about you? Shout outs, and where can the people find you?
Yeah, so shout outs to the French community, and especially the few people who are coming to Portland with me, because I was like, hey, I'm not going to be able to go to the European regionals in Malmö in May, so I want to go to a US regionals instead. I'm going to Portland. Anyone wants to come with me? And like, my friend Matthew was like, yeah, sure. Fabian was like, yeah, sure. So and his brother is coming too. So that's why I'm in this discussion, by the way. And otherwise, shout out to TCG Park, who I'm writing articles for. I have a guide to the Kyogre variant of Lost Zone coming up very soon. So be sure to check that out if it interests you in any way. And otherwise, you can see me, follow me on Twitter, as always.
I'm not excited to hear that 3 of the best players from France are coming. Like, y'all got to make it that much harder for us.
We'll see.
They've done that a couple times this year.
No promises.
Myself, you can find me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube at Mellow_Magikarp. If you're on iTunes, please leave a review. iTunes users, y'all are slacking. Spotify, you're doing a good job. YouTubers, you're doing a good job too, and I appreciate that. Help to get more ears to hear these lovely people's opinions. This has been another episode of the Lake of Rage podcast. We'll catch you all in 2 weeks. No episode next week. I'm going to be in Portland. Catch you all in 2 weeks.